Okay, let's go back to the 1990s. Japan is in the middle of this massive economic slump, and out of nowhere, a whole generation of teenage girls just rises up. But not with protest signs, no, they rose up with platform boots, seriously bleached hair, and super deep tans. They were called gals, and they basically tore up the rulebook on what it meant to be a young woman in Japan. And it all kicked off with a look that was, honestly, less about fashion and more about a full-on declaration of war.
I mean, just look at this. The bleached hair, the tan, the hacked-up school uniform, this whole vibe, which exploded out of Tokyo's Shibuya district, was a totally deliberate choice. Every piece of it was a visual scream against a society that expected them to be pale, quiet, and polite. It was a complete and total rejection of the old way of doing things.
So you gotta ask, right? What was really going on here? Was this just some fleeting fashion trend? Or was it something way deeper? How on earth did a bunch of high schoolers create a cultural movement so powerful that we're still talking about it decades later?
To really get the gals, you have to picture the world they were living in. Japan's crazy bubble economy had just burst, and there was this mood of gloom and uncertainty everywhere. But the social rules for young women, they hadn't budged. They were still supposed to be this perfect ideal, pure, submissive, and basically living to get approval from a male-dominated world. And the gals just looked at that whole picture and said, yeah, no thanks, we're out.
And wow, the contrast is just so clear. The traditional ideal was all about being quiet, having pale skin and black hair, and living for other people. The gal ideal just took that and flipped it completely on its head. Bleached hair, tan skin, and a life that was lived for me, for my friends, and for fun. It was a radical, revolutionary idea.
So where did this whole rebellion kick off? Well, it started in the one place designed for maximum control: school. The school uniform, this symbol of conformity, became the gals' #1 tool for revolution. They took this thing that was supposed to make them all the same and turned it into a massive statement of individuality.
And their methods were just genius. They didn't just wear the uniform, they deconstructed it. Skirts were rolled up at the waist until they were ridiculously short, even in the middle of winter. School bags were deliberately crushed and covered in stickers and doodles. And flashing a designer item like a Ralph Lauren vest or a Burberry scarf wasn't just about money. It was a signal that you belonged to a different club, a cooler club, one with its own set of rules.
Okay, but we have to talk about the loose socks. This detail is absolutely wild. It started with socks that were maybe 60 centimeters long, but the trend just kept escalating until girls were wearing socks that were 200 centimeters. That's 2 meters, over 6.5 feet long. They'd have to use a special kind of glue called sock touch just to hold them up perfectly around their ankles. That's not a trend, that is a serious commitment.
But the gal look didn't just stay in one place. It was always changing, always evolving, and always pushing the boundaries. It started out inspired by a pop star, and it ended up looking something closer to tribal war paint. It just shows how far they were willing to go.
So the first big wave was called Amura, and was all thanks to the pop icon Namie Amuro. Around 95, she made tan skin, dyed brown hair, and super thin eyebrows the absolute coolest thing imaginable. And this was like a cultural bomb going off. For centuries, the ideal of Japanese beauty was pale skin and black hair. Suddenly, overnight, that was completely flipped upside down.
From Amura, the look got even more intense and became known as Ganguro. This is where things get really extreme. The tan went from just sun-kissed to a super deep, dark brown that you could only get from tons of time in a tanning salon. And for that stark contrast, they'd use white concealer as both lipstick and eyeshadow. The look was getting more and more exclusive, a uniform for the girls who ruled the streets of Shibuya.
And then you reach the final boss level, Yamanba. It was named after a mountain witch from Japanese folklore, which pretty much tells you everything. The skin was almost black, the white makeup was even more extreme, and it was all accessorized with neon colors and bright hibiscus flowers. And let's be clear, this was not about being attractive to mainstream society anymore. This was armor. It was a look designed to be intimidating, confusing, and totally incomprehensible to anyone on the outside.
Now, this whole culture wasn't just about how you looked. The girls created their own entire self-contained world. It had its own language, its own rituals, and crucially, its own technology. They were super early adopters of new gadgets, and they used them to build this tight-knit tribe, completely separate from the adult world, and they moved so fast with tech. First, it was pagers, where they invented a whole secret language using numbers. Like 0840 was code for Ohio, or good morning. Then came these early mobile phones called PHS, or pitch. But when the real cell phones, the Keitai, arrived, that changed everything.
And that is the absolute key.
A gal's phone was basically an extension of her soul. It was covered with a truly insane number of straps and charms, so many that the accessories often weighed more than the actual phone. They had these light-up antennas that would flash when you got a call. It was a canvas to express exactly who you were.
But if you had to pick one piece of tech that was the absolute heart of girl culture, it would be Perikura, or Print Club. These photo booths that printed out little stickers were like a sacred space. Taking Perikura after school wasn't just a fun thing to do, it was a daily ritual. You'd collect all the stickers in a special book, and the thicker your book, the bigger your social life. It was proof of your popularity. Trading those stickers was how you cemented friendships.
So whatever happened to this crazy, explosive movement? Well, the super extreme Yamanba look didn't last forever, but the core spirit of the gals, that attitude, that fierce independence, it left a permanent mark on Japanese culture and, honestly, the world.
To really get their influence, you have to know about a department store called Shibuya 109. This place was their mecca. And the women who worked in the shops there, they weren't just salespeople. They were called charisma shop assistants. They were icons, trendsetters. If one of them wore a new top, it would be sold out by the next morning. They were the original influencers, long before social media was even a dream.
Now, it is important to note that this intense focus on brands and buying the next cool thing had a documented darker side. Social issues cropped up, like the Burusera shops that sold used school uniforms, and the phenomenon of enjo kosai, or compensated dating, where some young women went on dates with older men for money, often to afford these expensive items. These were a documented, complex part of the social history of the time.
But Depositive legacy is just undeniable. What's sometimes called the gal mind is really all about unapologetic self-expression. It's about creating your own trends, not just following them. It's about the power of fierce friendship and loyalty to your crew. And when you think about it, that is the literal blueprint from modern influencer culture. The idea of building your own personal brand and community, the gals were doing that with loose socks and pagers 2 decades ago.
All of this leaves you with one last thought. The gal movement was a totally grassroots thing, born on the streets, spread by word of mouth and very basic tech. In our world today, with algorithms and perfectly curated feeds telling us what's cool, could a rebellion that raw, that real, that fiercely independent ever actually happen again?